Da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and dopamine.
Ta-da! Hello and welcome to the 4th episode of Dungeons and Dopamine. I'm Bree Fagan.
I'm Jess Wozniak.
And we are here again to bring you a little bit of our dopamine and hope that it brings you some dopamine.
I feel like we need an opening song.
Somebody should write us a song.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Maybe, can't Zach do music?
Yes, but will he publicly? No. Because he doesn't think he can write music, even though he can.
We'll just sing it. Like, ba-da-da-da-da-da, Dungeons and Dopamine.
Ta-da!
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We also need an end song because we're really bad at like saying goodbye.
We just want to talk forever.
And we're Midwestern, so we're trained to like,
about time to be going.
Then we talk by the door,
mm-hmm.
then we talk by the car. But my microphone does not reach to your car, so.
Maybe we could find a way to just be plugged in all the time. Could just be a non-stop podcast.
This is going to be a game changer.
Yes.
And people are going to be so confused.
In podcasting.
At my day job. Whoops.
We don't need those anymore. We have 4 podcast episodes.
Absolutely.
We have 3 podcast episodes and a 4th one that we are starting.
That's right. 4 weeks. So a month of podcasting.
Mm-hmm. Seems like it went so fast.
I bet people really miss us in between.
I assume so.
That's all I can figure.
We could start doing bi-weekly podcasts.
And really screw people up.
Mm-hmm.
We could do them twice a week if...
That's really what I meant by bi-weekly.
I thought you meant less.
I know. It's such a weird phrase, right? Does bi-weekly mean twice a week or once every other week?
Ooh. People, weigh in.
We'll put a poll up. No.
Yeah.
But seriously, if somebody knows how to write songs, otherwise you have to listen to us make them up every time.
We'll just record we'll just snippet out what we just sang and put it at the beginning of every episode.
Until you hate it and send us a song.
Yes. This is like torture for information, but it's
us, so it's not that torturous.
Obviously. Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
Pleasant.
I
We're
was
pleasant
absolutely
people.
Not going anywhere bad with that. We are people.
Pleasant ones even.
Exactly.
All right. I'll be honest, my dopamine this week was real estate. So also being honest, I definitely used up all my this week's topic on last week, which just fell out of my mouth when I was talking about camping. So I just got it all out at once, and now we can move on. So real estate is my other job. It's my main job. Some days, I think I'll probably talk about real estate like once a month on our podcast. Sometimes it'll be more informational, like information on crazy laws and like lending rules and stuff that you probably don't know about unless you've been through the process, and maybe some crazy stories if I can remember them from my mortgage days. But today I just kind of want to start off with something light and talk about some ridiculous things I've seen or you've seen or experienced while showing houses, or I guess being a realtor in general. It's a super weird profession. Like, I just meet sometimes friends, sometimes strangers, and I bring them into another stranger's house. I let them look around, poke through stuff. I mean, we're not going through dresser drawers unless it's a built-in dresser, because then
cupboards.
We're going through dresser drawers.
Yeah.
But we got to make sure the cupboards work. Got to check to see if they're soft close. Got to see if the drawers, a lot of houses in Muskegon were built in the 50s, and those drawers aren't sliding much anymore. So we got to check all those things.
Well, honestly, even like the fridges, if I'm interested in taking the occupant's fridge, I want to look in it to make sure it's not full of like black mold.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Dishwashers.
It's way creepier when you say it like that,
Oh yeah,
though.
it's super weird. And I don't know if the people that have listed their houses don't remember what people are going to be doing when they're going through their house. Some of the stories I have, it's obviously vacant houses that were deserted or owned by renters that that were destroyed. So that I understand. But some of these houses just make me giggle. I'm going to start with kind of the darker stuff and then move to the lighter stuff because that's how I prefer to do my life. And just kind of talk about the weird safety issues for realtors, realtors and I guess house sellers. I actually, and I hope I don't have to change this if this market ever changes, I don't do open houses anymore. And the reason I don't do open houses is because everything in real estate is about putting your face on things. And then I'm advertising that I'm going to be possibly alone in this vacant house for these hours on this day.
I have a really great idea because I've never thought of that. I think we should hire some really large, preferably attractive men to be photographed with you and be at the open houses with you.
Yes.
Sorry,
I approve of
Zach
this idea.
and Ryan, because I intend to be there too now.
Yes, because necessary.
I'm one of your employees.
Mm-hmm. And much safer for me if I have a whole group of people.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it won't scare any prospective buyers away either.
No.
Because they'll
bring
be
them
attractive.
In. Exactly.
So
people love attractive people.
This is a great marketing idea.
That's what I do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here for you. And I'm sorry we haven't addressed this sooner. It was a problem I didn't think about. But that is really interesting. I never thought about, like, you're on billboards in our area. And if I thought, "Gal, she's so pretty," and I knew you were going to be alone at this big empty lake house, who the hell is going to stop me?
Mm-hmm.
That's so crazy and so creepy.
Yes. And I'm not a big person.
Right.
And that's obvious in my photos. Like, they could obviously... Anyway, I have carried a gun. I have my CPL. I have carried a gun to open houses, but that freaks me out more. Now I just don't do them.
Yeah.
There's technology or options out there. People in bigger cities with, like, reliable internet will set up basically like a Ring doorbell or a Wi-Fi camera, and you play it off as like, oh, the sellers like to see how many people came in, or even they'll just have somebody sit on like the other side of a web call, so I could Zoom somebody and have my webcam open on my computer the whole time so that somebody else is always on the other side of it. It's crazy that we
blowing my mind. I've never thought of it.
Yeah. It's also the reason that I stopped putting my picture on my business cards. I'm probably never going to get away from, like, billboards or, Facebook, social media. My picture's always going to be out there a little bit, but I try not to associate it with anything that, like, gives people my phone number or, like, tells people anything about where I am. People that put their signs on their car. I don't put my real estate signs on my car. It's just really weird, creepy stuff. That I hadn't thought about.
Imagine if I was unhappy with maybe not even your service, but someone that you worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And
you saw my car in the parking lot.
Yeah. I mean, there are some crazy people. I hesitate to say that, but there are. Mm-hmm. Wow, I never thought about this. I can't work for you anymore.
I won't put your face on anything.
Appreciate that.
And there's also been some creepy houses. One of them, we walked in and, like, the house was kind of off anyway. It's just a lot of weird things. And then in the basement, there was a room with, like, a one-way mirror separating, like, the wall. It built into the wall, and all that was in the room was, like, a broken chair. And we just laughed. Like, we didn't look at anything else in the house. We were like, I don't know what's happening here, but we're done.
Was the house vacant?
Yes.
Okay. See, this is a bad subject because I feel like I'm going to have a lot of questions, and I'm supposed to let you talk right now.
That's okay. These are more, like I said, I didn't do any research on this one. These are just my stories. They're my personal stories. I don't even really have any that I stole from anyone yet. I'm going to try not to give any, like, personal information, but yeah, ask all the questions. Some of the other creepy things are, like, rooms with locks on them where they shouldn't be. Like when the lock is on the outside of the bedroom door, or a random closet. I saw a closet that obviously was supposed to have been built into like some sort of sound room.
Okay,
but it was
sure.
this very tiny closet, and it had all of this insulation around it, and then a window and a dead mouse just laying in the middle of it. I found a dead rabbit in a crawl space. It was a short basement already, and then there was this creepy door at the end of the short basement that led into a usual. A lot of Michigan basements have like sand crawl spaces on the outskirts of the main house, mostly for like plumbing and vents and stuff like that. But we opened that so we're already like kind of creeped out. It's a weird basement, and we get to the very end of the basement, and we open the door, and it's just a dead rabbit. It's like, this is not the house for you. Let's go. And then we found out on Facebook that one also had bed bugs before it was gutted when we were there.
Thankfully.
But when they bought it, it had bed bugs. I'll save my most awkward one for last. But some of the most awkward ones have been people being in the house that I didn't expect. So this is usually like a renter situation. Like the owner is selling the house, has a tenant, and for some reason the tenant either doesn't get the message that they need to leave the house for the day, or they just choose not to. And they do have that right. It is their house. I made it through a whole showing one time, and we could hear that there was a TV in one of the back bedrooms, but that was the only sign of any weirdness in the house. And when we got to that back bedroom, it was like a mom and 3 kids just hanging out in the bedroom watching TV. And we had I walk into every house and I yell hello and try to announce that I'm there just for these situations. And they didn't act surprised, but they also hadn't come out and been like, oh, by the way, we're here. They just waited until we opened the door and walked in. I showed a house where there was probably a 12-year-old boy just there by himself, homesick, I guess. And we hadn't gotten to notice that there would be anybody in the house. And I can't imagine just leaving my kid home alone and letting strangers walk in and out of my house.
Ever.
Even if he is 12.
Yeah.
Just seemed so crazy to me. The worst one was a tenant situation. She did not know we were showing up. It was not a good economic situation. There were a lot of people living in this very small house. And it was a very low-priced house. It was a duplex situation. Luckily, the upstairs unit was empty, but disgusting. The lower unit, kids, a mom, a husband, a grandma, tiny little house. The daughter was telling us family business she probably shouldn't have been. The tenant was just telling us 100 things wrong with the place and how awful the landlords had been. And by the time we left, we had to report it to the rental inspectors because I was worried about the health of the people in the house. The furnace didn't look like it was hooked up or venting right. It was crazy.
I do give kudos. You're sitting across from me. You've seen this whole time. My face has been in my hands because these are unbelievable. But kudos for reporting that, because that could be a really awkward situation, but you might have really improved those people's lives.
Right. And I did see that house did get an offer shortly after that. I'm really hoping it went to pleasant, nice people. So those are most of the bad ones. Some of the more funny ones, I had to break into a house. I was told to break into a house. It was a deserted house. It had used to have had greenhouses, 4 or 5 greenhouses, plus 3 giant outbuildings. They used to run a greenhouse and then live in this little house. It had been deserted for a few years, it looked like, or more. They had boarded up the doors. And when I made the showing request, he called and told me that I had to bring a specific type of, what does that call them? Impact driver, not just a screwdriver. It's got to be an impact wrench or whatever, because it's got to have a special torque bit on it, like a star-shaped torque bit. Luckily, my husband had that. And so I had to use that to break into both the house and the garage. And I could see why they boarded it up when I got into the house, because it was pretty obvious there had been squatters there. When we walked up the stairs that I was a little bit worried about even going up, there were like beds. There were like, I thought somebody was up there.
Oh my god.
There was like sleeping bags and blankets on the floor, and one like was rolled up in a particular way. I thought we had walked into like a homeless person squatting in this house, and was a little worried about our safety. There was no one there. And then we walked the whole property, and it just got crazier. Like these, well, it's kind of in the city, and it had been deserted for years, and just the garbage. There was an outhouse just kind of in the middle of nowhere. One of the tents, just, it was all the tags for plants, like the white square things that you poke in the plants. Millions of them just spread all over, like they had been thrown around. There's needles on the ground. But I got to break into a place. With that same buyer, we went into another house nearby. We actually went into it twice. This is how I noticed it. The first time we went in, it had been deserted again for a while. It's kind of trashed, kind of dirty. We went into the basement. There were some obvious structure issues, so she wanted to get a basement specialist in to see how much it would cost to repair it before she decided if she was going to offer on it. So we came back with the basement specialist 2 days later, and I noticed cat puke on the floor. I was like, I'm pretty sure that wasn't here the other day, but that's weird. Like, this house is pretty closed up. And then we're in the basement, and it's a disgusting, creepy basement anyway. You know, the place has been deserted, but all their belongings are still in this basement. And I'm nosy, so I'm kind of looking around. Sometimes you find like cool old books and old books, movies, like just things that, whatever. And the guy's kind of measuring things, so the client and I are just kind of hanging out. And I'm looking around, and I noticed a bunch of feathers. I was like, that's weird. And I'm poking around a little bit more, and I look behind this box that's next to like a mattress laying against the wall, and there's an orange cat sitting there. I was like, oh, someone lives here. And it didn't hiss at me, it didn't come out of its hiding place, and we left like a couple minutes later. But sometimes you just find, I have so many stories. I just thought of another one. I got attacked by a cat once. I was waiting for the client. He was running a little bit late, so I went in to like turn the light switches on and do all the things. And this cat was there, and it's kind of following me around, and it's super cute. Probably, I don't know, a couple years old, skinny, cute little thing. And I pet it a couple times, and it was fine. And I walked past it, and it hissed at me. And I was like, well, that's weird. So I just like walked away, and I went upstairs into a bedroom. And the cat followed me, and it's like hissing at me. And it jumps on the bed, and I tried to walk past it, and it jumped at me, chased me down the hall. I had to like scream at it, and like, it scratched me. And then my client shows up, and I'm like, man, just got attacked by this cat. I don't know what the problem is. And so we go in, and the cat was super nice the whole time to the client. Not a hiss, not a scratch. I don't know what I did to make that cat angry. It must have been like my dog's at home. It must have been able to smell something on me, and it just freaked out.
I would still pay good money if there was video of this cat chasing you down the hall.
I should have asked.
Right?
I did text the other realtor, and I was like, just so you know, this cat attacked me. Like, I'm not hurt. I'm bleeding a little, but I think the seller should know. And she got back like 5 minutes later. She was like, they said this has literally never happened before. Okay, it's just me then. I've never been hated by a cat before.
I'm sorry it happened at this house. Mine, when I sold my house before you were a realtor, so people don't think I screwed you over.
There would be no podcast.
There would be no friendship. My cat was like a great prop. He was a big fat lazy dude, and he laid on our bed like a prop pillow apparently the entire showing. This was like for the open house, and several people asked if they could have the cat. I'm sure it was in jest, but I thought it was pretty great. So I don't think ours attacked anybody.
Apparently not. I've had a client with an attacked cat, but we knew ahead of time and we put him in a kennel. His name was Harley. I still love him. So what else? With one of my clients, we figured out was a police officer's house, and he had a vault locked room in the back. Apparently for his guns, we found out his firearms and things, which is great because he had kids and
absolutely
one of the kids' rooms was in the basement cool, glad everything is locked up. But at first it was like, why is there a giant locked room in this basement? I found a couple marijuana houses that were obviously grow houses before they were listed. In one of them, I was actually with a family of 5, so mom, dad, and 3 kids, plus mom's parents were there. So I have 7 people in this house. It's a HUD house, so it's a bank-owned house that they're selling for a little bit under market, but they're not going to do any work. They're not going to make any repairs, all that, and it needs some work. And we all walked into the basement, and I went a different way from them. And they walked into this cute little, done, finished space. And I walked into this other space that there's, holes in, you can tell, there's, holes in the walls, or the venting's always weird. And then there's, hooks on the walls where they obviously had lighting. And the grandma comes into the room with me, and she goes, "Oh, interesting." And I just kind of nodded, and I wasn't, I do disclose that to my clients. I wasn't sure if I should say it in front of grandma, so I was kind of holding back. The property was on 5 acres, so we walked to the back, and it looked like it had been a horse place, or they had horses. But when we got out there, it was still more grow equipment. You could see that they had outdoor plants and all the equipment and the water to run it, and an electric fence around the whole property. And at that point, Grandma looks at me and she goes, "Do you think they grew some special plants here?" I said, "Yeah, I think they were growing something special." And all the kids were like, "They had a garden?" I'm like, "Yeah, a really special garden." They did not buy that house, so I don't know what happened. Well, I know it. I drive by it all the time, but it's sold. I don't know what they did with it. I've seen at least 3 of those where you can tell. Some of them, they'll divert some of the heating or the cooling, and they'll cut big holes in to make it vent better, or they'll put charcoal filters in, so they'll cut big holes to put the charcoal filters in. It's just crazy what they'll do to destroy, or to have a business at home, I guess. I'll call it that. The last couple, one of my most frustrating ones, one of my cousins bought a house and used me as a realtor, and we knew the house wasn't great. It was the first and only house they looked at. They're handy people. They were going to make it what they wanted. We knew it wasn't in great shape. But when they showed up to move in, first of all, the previous owners had just left all their garbage. So I had to call someone in to help them clean. But they were walking through the house to check everything out, and there was a giant hole in the bathroom wall. And she texted me about it, and I was like, "We would have seen that." So I went back through the listing photos, and there was a convenient picture over the hole in the bathroom. So they had been hiding it, and then took the picture when they left. They couldn't even leave it there on the wall, so that, I don't know. My most awkward one, and this one is not appropriate for little ears.
Spoiler warning.
Yes.
Or content warning.
Content warning. Adult content warning. And just to make matters better, I was actually showing the house to an ex-boyfriend of mine and his adult nephew and his adult nephew's wife. And we're in the house, everything's fine. I just finished telling them about how it might be a little messy because the wife has already moved to Florida and the husband is staying there trying to pack things up while she's gone. And we go up the stairs where the bedrooms are. And again, they go one way and I'm turning on lights in the other rooms. And the very last bedroom I walked into, the first thing I noticed was that the bed wasn't made. And I was like, that sucks, but it happens. And then I noticed that the nightstand drawer was open. Well, that's definitely not good. So I was walking around the bed just to like bump that drawer shut before anybody came in. But then I noticed that there were multiple adult things on the bed still. And at that point I'm done. I don't even want to be in this room anymore. I walked out and I was like, I apologize for what you will see in that room, but we'll just move on, I guess. But then I had to call the realtor, the listing agent, because it was a new listing. It was probably 2021, so all listings were basically, if you put a listing up for sale, it would have nonstop showings for a full day, and then you'd end up with 10 offers. We were there at 5 o'clock. So my hope is they had showings in the morning, the owner came home in the afternoon, did whatever he wanted to do. I don't kink shame.
It did his adult fun.
That's your own business. And then forgot and left for the evening showings. But either way, I wanted to warn the realtor that there were probably more showings. I had to text the listing agent and be like, just so you know, there are some personal items laying out in the bedroom that you might want to send your seller home to clean up before the next the next showing. And he was like, tell me what it was. Maybe sometime I'll buy you a beer.
You should have taken a photo and sent it to him. Well, then you don't have to use words. You don't have to be professional. You could just
take care of this
picture,
please.
And send. And you could have adult content warning like we did.
Yeah, adult content.
Now you know what to do next time. I'm sure this will happen again.
Probably.
I feel like you'll see a lot. Like in 10 years, we should probably write a book.
I will. Let's write a book.
Write a book. It'll be good.
I heard you have a showing story.
I do. So.
And then I think I have one more.
All right. So about 5 years ago, my husband and I sold our home, and we were looking to kind of expand. We needed more space, had a kid. Turns out your house starts to shrink and you need more space. So you were not a realtor at the time. And
I did refer you to the realtor you used, though.
And I loved her. She was amazing.
She still is.
She is fabulous. And we loved her. And so there was a day, this was pre the wildness of listing a house and then it sells for way over market and stuff like that. So this was just a kind of general market. Things were going somewhat fast if they were amazing, and it was a normal market, I think, like average. So she had a whole day of listings for us. We were going to go visit, and we brought my parents because my dad does a lot of construction and helps us out. And, I just like getting my mom's opinion. So we dropped the kid off elsewhere and we went, and it was the four of us and our realtor, and everything was going great. We showed up at this house. We go in and we're checking it out. Looks normal at first. And we get into the living room and there's a pair of jeans and a shirt. The jeans still have the belt on them. Whoever vacated them did it quickly. We just thought, oh, okay, that's weird, because normally they know you're coming, they clean up, it's nicer than when they get home and they're trying to impress you. It was like, that's really strange. So we start poking around in bedrooms and stuff, and we go to open one of the doors and it doesn't open. But this time we kind of we're all whispering. We're not really sure why. I think it was something new internally, that there was something weird. In the rest of these houses, we'd been laughing and talking about features. And so the realtor's wonderful again. She's like, are you guys ready to go? We went through it really quickly and we're like, yeah, we are ready to go. So we go out in the garage and we're standing out there chit-chatting. We're being a little louder, a little more boisterous and blah, blah, blah. And a man opens the door and sticks his head out into the garage. and the realtor puts her hands up in the please don't shoot position and says, I'm so-and-so. Did your realtor not tell you there was a house listing today? And the guy's like, nope. And so she kind of sidebars with him, and it dawned on us that the reason we were acting weird, the reason the realtor was rushing us, was because she suspected what was going on, which was that this man was asleep in his bedroom without jeans on. Who knows what else he was wearing, but it wasn't jeans. And the realtor just simply did not tell him. They did not prepare him that we were coming. And it was wild. The things that could have happened. Mm-hmm. We didn't think about it till we were in the car leaving, and it was like a heavy blanket settled over us of like, oh my gosh, we could have been shot. Mm-hmm. Like, absolutely wild.
Well, and there are stories, I see them on Facebook every once in a while, or the news, where the realtor will get the house wrong. Oh. So one of them was like, it was the neighbor's house instead, and for some reason the neighbor hadn't locked their back door, and it was a weird coincidence where like the listing instructions said to go in through the back door. And the only reason they got caught is because there was a Ring doorbell. And the owner was like, what are these people in my house?
And judging it.
Why are they talking like that? Probably the worst mistake it's not that bad. I don't want to phrase it that way. But when I was first starting out, I had 2 listings at the same time. They happened to be 2 of my very good friends, which worked out in my favor. Because this day and age, when you get a request for someone to show your listing, it comes through electronically. We have an app. You get, a thing that pops up, and somebody's requesting to see this house at this time on this day, and you can just confirm, deny. I don't know how I did it, but I mixed up the houses. So I told House A that they had a showing at, I don't know, it was like 2 o'clock, or no, it must have been like 5 o'clock at night. And I did not tell House B that there was a showing. And then I arranged, because they were friends of mine, House A had dogs. And they were like, oh, we can't be there during that time. And I was like, that's fine. I'll go get the dogs. I'll drive around with the dogs for a while. I don't know why it worked out this way, but I had Connor home that day too. He must have been sick or something. So I go pick up these 2 dogs from my friend's house, and I put them in my car, and I bring them to a nearby park where I try to walk them, but that's not going to work. And it's hot out, and I have a baby in the car, and it's chaos. But that's fine. That's what I'll do for my friends and my clients, until my friend from House B calls me and says, did we have a showing just scheduled right now? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I was like, well, they just showed up. And we were all home and not expecting it. And I was like, oh no. And I looked, and sure enough, the request was for House B, and I had set it up for House A.
You'd vacated House A. Did they go see House A?
No, they were very different houses. It was...
Oh no.
So not only did I cause chaos for myself, I caused chaos for my poor clients.
All of them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was bad. It was embarrassing, but I mean,
sure.
No
It
harm,
could have been
no
worse.
foul. They were fine, and didn't shoot anybody.
Amen.
So that was good. But it really is just. I mean, I've only been in the business since 2018, the end of 2018, and this is like the more I talk, the more stories I come up with that are like, oh my gosh. I do want to end this on a happy note. My very favorite real estate story so far. The client was introduced to me from another friend, so she was new to me. She's amazing now. We're friends now. We meet, and they want to buy a house, and they have to sell their house. So I go see their house. It's this tiny little adorable house. It has like a loft upstairs.
Love that.
It's just super unique. It's tiny. It's like, I don't know, 700 square feet, maybe smaller, maybe 600.
There were 5 of them living in it? Wow.
It was time to go. The kitchen, it was unique. It was set up really well, and we priced it right, and I was a little worried about it selling, but it was that time, so we start getting all these showing requests. And then I get a phone call from an agent I used to work with at my previous brokerage, and she says, Bree, I have to have this house. And I said, you want to set up a showing? Like, and she was like, no, listen, this was my house. My husband and I lived there when we got married. That giant spruce tree out front, we planted there on my first anniversary. I'm like, oh my gosh, really? And
I'm crying.
Like, but what are you gonna, like, you can't live in it. She's like, strangely enough, my son called me last week and said he wants to move back home and he needs a place to stay. And we still ended up with 9 offers on that house, but they got it hands down. And now, and they, like, I still talk to them sometimes. Now I'm friends with the client, and so I check in with them all the time, and she's just so happy to have that house back, and it really came full circle on everything. It's just incredible.
I love that.
And it made my client so happy, because that had been, the husband had actually bought it before they were together, and they had made it this cute little happy family nest that they were obviously outgrowing, but it was, their lives were just so ingrained with it, they hated giving it up. But knowing that it was going back to somebody that loved it and had history with it.
Oh, I love that.
My very favorite real estate story.
Absolutely.
So far.
I'm gonna cry. I cry at everything, but I'm gonna cry. That's such a good story. What a good, like heartwarming thing. We did that thing where we wrote a letter when we bought our house to the current owner of it, and said, like, we love it. We have so many ideas of what we want to do and blah, blah, blah. And I hope that they're, regardless of whatever circumstances they were going through to sell it, whether it was good or it was bad, I just hope that they think about it and think, cool, there's family taking care of this house and they're treating it right. Which sounds silly because it's a house, but I still hope that the people who live in our old house treat it right, because we worked so hard.
Yes, it's my favorite part of the job. The people I get to meet, the connections I get to make, and just these incredible stories. Like, what are the chances that their old house would go up for sale a week after their son wants to come home?
Amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. I'm going to tell anybody who's listening. So you had mentioned you're going to do this every 4 weeks or so. If you have anything that you'd like Bree to talk about specifically, let us know.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to hear?
We could talk about loan types. We could talk about appraisals. We could talk about title work.
We
could just tell crazy stories.
I asked her for some creepy stories. I'd love to hear some spooky stuff. Why am I so interested in spooky stuff? I don't know. I hate sleep. So
I need sleep.
So if you have anything, you can email us. We talked about it last week. Here's another reminder. It's Dungeons Dopamine. One word. No caps. I think no cap now means something than no
something
caps.
Different.
I think it means, like, not joking.
Or
like
it's like an expert on a topic, or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I might have Urban Dictionary'd it once.
Oh.
But I don't remember the exact definition. I'm just going to do it right now. That's why we have the internet.
If everybody's feeling old, if we find that we have a nice older community of old farts like us, let us know if you'd like a topic of Urban Dictionary definitions. We got you.
We could do a whole,
If you are in fact young and you do understand what this means, you can let us know at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com. Don't put the and, because that's another super cool podcast we found out last week. But dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com. We also have Facebook.
I was way off. It's another word for lying.
What? Like,
so you say, no cap, like, I'm not lying, I'm telling the truth.
Oh, like, no cap, I'm a great realtor.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna make that my next business card.
Absolutely. We'll make t-shirts and hats. No cap. This is the best podcast you've ever heard.
I'm in.
Absolutely. So, I love it. I can't wait to hear more stories. as far as information, I don't have a request yet, but I will come up with something.
Please do.
I don't ever want to sell my house again. Ever.
Same.
I want to die in this house.
You will not have... Carly will not have to disclose that on the seller's disclosure.
Perfect.
If you die in the house.
Perfect. Because if I die in here, I'm not leaving. And if they try to change anything about it, I'm haunting them.
They're probably going to put the tile back on the countertops.
I hate that.
As you should.
Maybe I'll put it back when we move. I do have a box of that tile upstairs.
Oh, perfect.
Awful.
You should build Zach a table
Yes.
for his birthday.
Oh, that's a great idea.
He would hate it so much. He'd love it.
I know. It's perfect. He wants me to decorate for him. I'll be like,
true.
so happy birthday. I did this just for you. Here's the beginning of the end.
Yes.
And then he'll break it in front of me. But it won't break.
No, it's impossible.
Because that tile is indestructible.
It'll be the nicest table we own.
Absolutely. You guys will be able to, like,
Sleep
jump on it.
Even
Yeah.
if it's only this big.
Exactly. It's going to be genius. Mm-hmm. I like the way you think.
Speaking of thinking, what was in your brain this week?
I think I might have a broken brain. I'm done with conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. But Ryan and I like video games. We play them. We also watch some of the more famous people like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye play them. We watch some not as famous people play them. And being a little older and having a kid, you don't have as much time to play games, so it's kind of nice to watch. That being said, I also like to read, and I read this amazing story. I'm gonna absolutely plug it. I read it on Reddit. It is called How to Survive Camping by Bonnie Quinn. She has created an amazing story about a woman who inherits a family campground. It's on old land, which is like rife with all these epic folklore characters. Ooh. She writes about how you can survive camping on the campground and how she lives and survives on this campground. It's written as though it's 100% true. There's a website you should visit called goatvalleycampgrounds.com. It's amazing. They have turned this story from a Reddit no sleep story to books that you can purchase on Amazon. There are 4 books: Man with No Shadow, The Lady in Chains, The Horse Eater, and The Beast. And I am absolutely going to buy them despite having already heard the story because it's amazing.
I'm intrigued.
I'm
going to buy it.
You must. It's so good. Highly recommended. Once again, How to Survive Camping, Bonnie Quinn, 4 books. Go to Amazon, goatvalleycampgrounds.com. She is not sponsoring this, but I love her.
But if she hears it and wants to reach out and send Jessica an email saying, hey, we
100%. Or if you want to sign copies of these books, I love you. You're my hero. So, anyway, I read this story. It's rife with this fantastic folklore. I'm going to say that so many times. You guys are going to... You're never going to be able to say the word correctly again. So I read this, and this was a few years ago. I think about it every time someone talks about camping. Every time I drive past a big stretch of woods. It's really in my brain now. And then... to add on to that, back to video games, we watched someone play Bramble the Mountain King, which is a Swedish folklore-based game. So good.
Bramble the Mountain King.
Absolutely. Yes, Bramble the Mountain King.
Why do I have to write down everything you talk about?
I'm just that good. And it's so good. There's so much involved in it. It's so great. I have a lot of Swedish ancestry. It's one of my richer ancestries that I'm aware of. It's just so good. So my brain has now latched onto this like a lamprey, and I'm obsessed. So that's what we are going to talk about.
Yay!
Today is going to be Nordic folklore, which covers Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Iceland. There's a small batch of islands as well, and I'm sorry I did not write them down, but it also covers them.
Okay.
And you'll feel a lot of influence as I cover folklore in the next few weeks. You'll feel them influencing each other a lot. And I think a lot of this folklore or mythology is based on like scaring children into behaving. I'm really glad we don't do that anymore, but it scares me into behaving, so I don't know. These
So
kids
it must work.
Exactly. So there's a lot of Nordic folklore that is super familiar, like trolls and dwarves, elves, fairies. There's a lot more that is epically fantastic. So your dwarves and elves are pretty Tolkien-esque. Your dwarves are like blacksmiths and live in mountains and really, I mean, that's them. Your elves are fairly Tolkien-esque as well. They do have occasional cruel or selfish tendencies, which I think brings them around to being ageless or long-lived, and they just don't have time to bother with our short lifespans, especially when you're talking a few hundred years ago, because they were even shorter. But they are graceful, typically beautiful. Sometimes they fall in love with people. Sometimes they get bored, so they trick people. Just some good stuff. I will preface this by saying I couldn't find a lot of stories. I wanted to tell you guys some stories. There are tons of stories out there, but they're vague. They don't specifically call out these creatures and stuff. I think it's a bad luck thing.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of.
Because if you talk about them, you're basically calling them.
Exactly. Like, he who must not be named. You don't say Lord Voldemort because he's scary and you'll call to him. And that makes these even more creepy, which I think is fantastic. So I'm going to start off the Huldra. She's a beautiful woman. She lures men into the forest, and she has sexy time with them. And after they're done, she steals their souls. Men who make it back are never the same. It's as if they're hollow. Men who don't make it back are thought to have been killed by the soul stealing. She's very beautiful. That's how she leads them away. She does, however, have a cow tail.
What?
Yes. She hides
I was not
that.
expecting that.
You're welcome. And a large cavernous hole in her back. She does, in certain areas, have a foxtail instead of a cowtail, which I think sounds a lot more attractive.
Yeah.
But it's unpleasant all around.
So what is the gaping hole for? Did they say?
I don't
It's
know.
just there.
Yeah, it's. I think it's supposed to show that she's sort of empty. She uses her looks to lure in men. She steals their souls because she is empty and she's trying to replace it. That's sort of what I gathered from it. That's a little bit of speculation as well. I can't confirm that's what they're getting at, but
It's a good guess.
yeah, a lot of these have that sort of like lesson to learn kind of behind them. She doesn't always kill them in or send them away. If she falls in love with one and he falls in love with her, he will get to live out his life with her, and it'll be a life of wealth and abundance, but he'll never again be able to see the people he loved in his former life. So she's one of the more tame ones in this culture, but this next one is probably one of my favorites. It's the Nissa or Tomten. And when I was a kid, my mom had a big collection of Swedish Christmas posters. Almost every one of them had a little, almost like a little garden gnome, a little pointy top hat and a white beard. He looked like a tiny Santa, and they would be very small, next to bowls of cream that a cat was drinking out of, or something along those lines. And that's essentially what these are. These are little guys who are associated with Christmas. They take care of things on a farm. They're benevolent, they're friendly, unless the farmer ignores them or disrespects them. Then they will sabotage the farmer's efforts to teach them a lesson. If he sweeps the floor and the Nissa feels slighted, he might knock the garbage can over so the dust is back across the floor. He's not inherently violent, but he does not like to be disrespected. He won't eat them or steal their children or anything, but he wants to teach them that they need to be polite. And I think he might be my favorite, and part of it is probably linked to the fact that I've seen them since I was a little kid. Trolls, of course, are trolls. You used to love trolls.
With the colorful
Yeah,
hair
absolutely. And a gem
jewels.
belly. Yes, absolutely.
That's how I've always pictured trolls.
Absolutely. Especially when they're doing evil things.
Yeah. Tolkien had it all wrong.
You're so
Giant
dumb.
trolls that turn to stone. Treasure trolls is where it is.
Absolutely. Man. I'm really disappointed that there aren't treasure trolls in the trolls world today. It's very disappointing.
We could write some fables.
Absolutely. We'll start a whole Michigander folklore besides Paul Bunyan.
That's all we got.
It's basically. Oh, the Sleeping Bear Dunes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ryan, you can cut this out. So, trolls. Trolls are typically ugly. Mostly, they're not real friendly. In some stories, if travelers or homeowners, whatnot, will help them, they will actually assist them if they get into trouble. They're typically stupid, and depending on where the story is being told, whether it's Norway or Sweden, you will see different sizes of them and different looks. Think Tolkien trolls, that's a great way to say it, versus like Frozen trolls.
Oh, I forgot about Frozen trolls.
Yeah, little rock guys, they're so cute. So they do have varying stories, even though they are all really similar. Now, this one next is absolutely terrifying. She is called Nutmara. Bear with me if I'm saying any of these wrong. We did look up the correct pronunciation, but I cannot promise you that it's coming out correctly.
Right.
So this is what I would explain as the girl from The Ring.
Oh.
She's tall. She typically is wearing a nightgown. It's typically white, long black hair, long sharp fingernails, and she can shapeshift, but that is her preferred form. She can even turn into sand, so she can slip through cracks and come into your home.
Oh, no.
So she can basically get anywhere.
Nope. No thanks.
She will come in and sit on your chest while you're sleeping, and her hair will entangle you, and she will turn your dreams to nightmares.
Yes, she will.
She's very similar to a banshee.
Okay.
There are some tales that say she screams at you while you sleep, and that's where the nightmares come in. Some say that she'll wrap you with her hair, and that's where the nightmares will come in. They say because she can change form, she's hard to catch, because she can be a cat walking through an alley after she turns your nightmares into nightmares, your dreams into nightmares.
And slips out in her sand form and becomes a cat.
Exactly. Or as a worm that you never see again. It's said that she is obviously a bad omen. I can't imagine she would be a good one.
Right? She's not friendly.
Exactly.
She's not giving head massages.
It's unfortunate. Why don't they have any of that?
Why isn't that in the folklore?
The folklore. I got you. She will leave a dirty doll in your living room.
Oh, no.
And if she does that, someone in your household will die of TB.
What? If she leaves a dirty doll in your house, you're going to get tuberculosis.
Absolutely.
And die.
Yes. Yeah, so she's great.
I hate scary dolls.
She will also take the family's horse and ride it overnight until it's exhausted and then return it to the family. So the next morning when they wake up, their horse is utterly spent and like drenched in sweat, which is gross.
And really inconvenient. What if they have to go somewhere?
Absolutely. And they've just had a horrible night's sleep because you stuck your hair on them and screamed in their face.
Screamed at them.
And there's sand everywhere.
She's awful. I don't like her.
I do not like her. There is a theory that she is the bad guy in Frozen 2.
Oh.
That she caused Anna and Elsa both to have nightmares. And that's how the whole adventure begins, which is very interesting.
Yeah. So Frozen would be like a Nordic, Swedish
absolutely. There's a lot
situation.
of things tied to that in this folklore that I found. These guys are the only ones that I've got stories about, and these are the Vitra. They are invisible folk. They're small, human-like, completely invisible unless they wish to be seen. They have their own world. They even have their own cattle and things like that. They don't bother humans unless humans are rude to them. A good example of that.
Theme here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about respect.
Yeah.
These ones, if you go outside to, like, say, throw out a pot of water or something like that, or if you're out camping or something and you have to go potty, I have a 7-year-old, go potty. And you do not say, watch out, you might anger them. Because, of course, they want to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Nobody
wants to be peed on.
I mean,
okay, you did say you don't kink shame.
That is a weird one, though.
I don't want to think about it.
Moving on.
Yeah. So they don't want that. Even sometimes in modern times, when people feel like they've angered these, they'll move. Even whole structures to get away from them, like rebuild homes and things like that, because they've angered them.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. There's a YouTuber who I watched, and her name is Heartful of Forest. She's Swedish. She was amazing. She does a whole YouTube on, like, simple living.
Okay.
And she told about, as a child, one time when she saw a Vitra. They were very small, very pale, and it was a little woman looking at her from behind a chair leg, which is adorable. And her mom once went camping with a friend and angered the Vitra. And her mom woke up the next morning with her eyes full of sand. And
did they invite the other girl?
I did not think of that. I hope not.
Right?
No one invites that girl.
I already forgot her name. I don't want to know it.
I think the girl from The Ring was Samara or something. And they sort of remind, like...
It's probably
based on it. It has. Her friend, though, her mom's friend, woke up with her face all red, like she had experienced sunburn. So they went home, and they didn't understand what had happened, and her grandmother, this YouTuber's grandmother, said, you upset the Vitra. They're teaching you a lesson. Next time, show some respect.
Did you pee on them?
Yeah, exactly.
They gave you
or
sunburn.
Worse.
Right?
This one is also a thing of nightmares. He's called the Nukin. The Nukin. He is typically a man who will lure people to their death in bodies of water. In Swedish lore, he's typically a very beautiful man who's playing a violin.
Like mermaid siren style?
Yes, yeah, very similar. And he plays the violin and lures you in, and his song is so intoxicating that you don't realize that you are going to drown until it's too late, basically. He in Sweden, he likes to draw on young women. In other cultures, he's not so picky. He
more open-minded.
Yeah, absolutely. He will sometimes take the form of a boat or a floating treasure chest, so that when they're either in the boat and in the middle of the water, he can take his true form and bring them under. Or a treasure, people will go to gather it, and then he can become his true form. He also, and I think this one is the creepiest, he will also take the form of a horse that will tempt children to ride it, and then he will jump into the water and drown them.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, he's super creepy. Now, he is not always malevolent in every story. I say that halfway. Sometimes he will teach people to play his instrument, and they don't always go mad.
Only most of the time.
I could totally be this guy's social media manager.
He's good sometimes.
Violin lessons. There's only like a 33% chance you'll go mad. So, I think he's pretty creepy, but she's, Nightmare Girl still wins.
Yeah.
There is The Pesta. She's an old woman, typically explained as very ugly. It's thought that she came about around plague. The plague hit very hard in Nordic culture. It took out half of the population of Norway.
Really?
It was very serious for them. Yeah, terrifying, honestly. So she would show up in black, and she carried either a rake or a broom. If you saw her with a rake, everyone on your farm was going to die. If you saw her with a broom, there's a chance that some of you would survive, but you were still going to get sick. There wasn't a ton of information on her. She does make an appearance in the game. Spoiler alert. I'm not going to say more than that, but she's pretty cool in the game. This next one is fairies. I think there's a lot of iterations of fairies, and I think that word is used really broadly. Like, think of Sarah J. Maas. She uses fairies as, like...
humans.
Yeah, and lesser fairies. Like, she's covering a whole base of people. But in Nordic, they're typically like Tinkerbell.
Okay.
Small, pixie-like, usually female. They're usually beautiful. Occasionally in Norse or its Icelandic culture, they'll call them elves. They're also called the Holdufolk.
I like that one.
I do too. That's why I put it in there. And they're mischievous, but they can be deadly if you upset them.
If you disrespect them.
Exactly. And people will not build near them because while they're typically just mischievous for fun, misplacing something, putting it elsewhere, you can upset them. The respect thing is back. And if you do that, they can become deadly. Even though they're small, they're mighty.
I have a crazy fairy story.
Oh dear. Okay.
When I moved in to the Skylar house, so when I lived with Genesis, it was a rental, and the people that had lived there before us had left a bunch of stuff. So the landlord had just put it on this, like, enclosed porch that we had, and it sat there for weeks while we lived there. And finally I told the guy, like, if they're not coming to get this, I'm either gonna throw it out or maybe I'm gonna keep some of it. So I went through it, and there was a book on fairies in it. It was an older book. It was gorgeous. It was all these beautiful illustrations. Each page was a different type of fairy, and it had, like, information on it. And I owned it the whole time I was in that house. I don't know if you remember, but that is the house I left to go on my road trip.
Yes.
And I have not seen my book since then. So I don't remember if I don't feel like I would have sold it, because I really liked coming across that book. But it's like it came to me and then left me.
That's wild. Maybe it's still at the house.
Maybe
it stays with the house.
Maybe the fairies live there.
I was going to say, when you said it was a different fairy on every page, it was beautifully illustrated. It was clearly the beginning of a really great adventure story that you were about to be a part of.
I know.
This might be familiar if you've played Skyrim at all.
I downloaded it once.
You should definitely play it. It's such a good game. Anyway, in Swedish folklore, there's something called a draugr, or a draug.
I have heard of this.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so these are really popular in Skyrim. That's immediately what I think of when I read this. And these are kind of like a zombie almost. They protect Old Nord crypts. If you get near something worth money or something sentimental, they will come after you. They are super strong. They're usually necrotic. Sometimes they're broken bones. The word draug is Swedish for dim-witted and pale. So they're not very smart. I love that.
Zombies.
Yes, absolutely. And as the tale of draugr aged, they also kind of turned into vampires in that they could turn you into a draugr. If they were also super strong, so if they fought you, they would pretty much have you. You couldn't really do much. You did not want to face them. And, you know, if they got their hands on you, they'd turn you into one. A gross, necrotic zombie.
Yay!
And this
that
last
sounds way
one,
worse than a vampire.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least vampires get to be pretty most of the time.
Right. I can stay up all night. So, this last one is potentially the most disturbing.
Oh boy.
I'm going to give a really light trigger warning. This does have to do with losing children.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. So just a light one. It's still folklore. It's not based on reality or anything.
But trigger warning just the same.
Exactly. So these are called myling babies. If you played The Witcher 3, I don't think you've played The Witcher 3, but this might remind you of the plot in one of the storylines of Witcher 3. But the myling babies are newborns, small children, or unborn children who were killed by their mothers.
Ooh.
And not by accident. These are violent
murder
children. Yes, exactly. And these...
Are they angry about being disrespected too?
Probably. I mean, mothers killing them is pretty disrespectful.
That's
so
like the most disrespectful.
Exactly, yeah. So these mylings at night would go up and down the street singing the song about their mothers. To be rid of one, you must find their body, name them, and bury them in holy soil.
Oh, like in a cemetery.
Yeah, or like a church.
Okay.
Something along those lines.
So they're looking for
some
comfort
and
peace.
And maybe sharing the story of how they were murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Super horrible. These guys, not quite as creepy as Sand Screaming Lady.
Not a big fan of hers.
But these ones definitely make it up there on my scale of creep. And I think the idea of a newborn baby or like an unborn fetus baby crying and like, I don't know, I picture them like floating down the road because infants can't walk.
Right.
It's terrifying.
So
and
they just like chase you around and scream at you?
Yeah, and they're mean. Like they can hurt you.
Oh.
And they're like the photos are terrifying.
I will not Google those.
No,
ones.
don't. They're way creepier than last week's Disney photo. And that's where I end this. Whereas you like to end things on a high note, I like to end things on the most terrifying
babies
note.
that are screaming at you.
Exactly.
So that you will give them peace and snuggles.
Absolutely. And if you don't, by the way, if you are chosen by one of these myling babies to find their body and put them to rest, they won't leave you alone until you do.
So you have to really hope that the mom was bad at covering up her tracks.
Absolutely. Ugh. Yeah, so that's Nordic folklore. There's so much more rich folklore, and I'm sure that there are a lot of stories, nursery rhymes, tales that involve all of these things. I just couldn't find them without... I need a month to research it, not just a week or so. But it was so good. I'm going to remind you all, please, again, to check out How to Survive Camping by Bonnie Quinn. 4 books. You can get them all on Amazon. Man with No Shadows, Lady in Chains, The Horse Eater, The Beast. You can just look up How to Survive Camping and they'll pop up. Or visit her goatvalleycampgrounds.com. You will not regret it if you enjoyed this. And next week, we're going to talk about some more fun English folklore. So you'll like that a lot.
I'm going to go back to the green side of things, but I'm going to talk about what I'm calling feral gardening. Feral gardening is basically just letting my yard do what it wants.
Beautiful.
But I can't wait to tell you like what we've discovered.
I love this. Please involve some clover yards because that's
yes,
that's the direction we're going. We've had some yard work done. Well, it was and it's accidental yard work because we had things dug up and big
it
empty
wasn't
spaces. It probably not. And there was a lot of space to put clover. Don't dig in the clover.
Don't dig in. Yes, I will tell you all about clover
Please,
lawns
I'm so excited.
and moss lawns.
You're gonna bring me plants.
I am.
Everybody's gonna name them. We're pre-recording these weekly, so they should be able to name the plants pretty much as soon as they hear our first stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Yay. So thank you guys again. Check out our Facebook. If you
send us an email,
please
message us on Facebook.
And we will see you guys later. Thanks so much for listening to us on Dungeons and Dopamine.
We hope you got some dopamine.
Yeah.